Hey folks, your OS Reviews. You're watching our video first look and a quick review of the NiZHi TT-032. This is a multimedia speaker. It doesn't have wireless playback via Bluetooth. You have to use the supplied 3.5mm auxiliary cable to connect it to an iPod or a smartphone. You can also plug in a thumb drive or also a micro SD card loaded with music. It's going to play that as well, so it acts as a pseudo MP3 player. What's kind of cool about the TT-032 is it's first of all a pretty generic design. As far as this product's concerned, we've seen it quite a few times before floating around on eBay and Amazon, but it also works as a small alarm/clock, so you can put it next to, let's say, a desk, and it works quite well. It also features an LED light on the bottom which will glow and illuminate, and it gives the illusion that the speaker itself is kind of floating on a layer of light, which is quite nifty. Otherwise, you can see that it's a mono speaker as opposed to a stereo speaker, so sound quality isn't going to be as impressive as more expensive options on the market, but it does have a nice amount of bass, surprisingly, for the small size, and again, it packs in quite a few features for this price point of sub $15. So you can see here this is what the packaging looks like, rather generic, shows you a few instances where this could be quite useful. Also includes an FM radio, which is a nice feature to have. There's a small LCD screen on the front which displays the various modes that you'll be in, and there's a few other color schemes that you can customize this with. This is emulating porcelain, but it's basically just made out of plastic. And down below here we have access to a compartment that holds accessories inclusive of the charging cable, the 3.5mm auxiliary cable, but those are all pretty much standard, and you can always swap them out for your own if they break, or if you have your own that you want to use. So again, this is the charging cable, this is for the audio, and there's a small instruction guide as well that is pretty well documented, tells you how to set things up and use the speaker for the first time. So we're going to take a look at the design of the speaker first. The first thing that I'm going to say is it's perfectly centered and shaped like a cube. However, the speaker is smaller than I originally anticipated looking at images online. I thought this would be a lot larger. In fact, about the same size as maybe a more traditional bedside alarm clock, which is to say about this big. But this thing is tiny, and next to a phone, you can really get a sense of how small it is. So one other limitation that you'll notice right off the bat is the display and the speakers aren't facing on the same surface. They're on the opposite side. So if you're controlling something, if you're using this as an alarm next to your bed, the sound is coming out of the other side. So it's not going to be as rich sounding or impressive as if it was front facing. You could always turn it around, but then you have to turn it back and forth. So that's one of the limitations of having a smaller size, but you do get extra portability. So we're taking a closer look next at the build. The front here features a chrome glass-like surface, which definitely attracts a fair amount of fingerprints, and it does glare under the sun. So brighter environments, it's not going to be the best for this speaker. Down below here, you have a series of 5 keys for controlling the unit. They correspond to going through the various functions like FM radio, listening to music, loading it through the SD card or the USB slot. There's also PlayPause volume controls, and also the FM radio for tuning and selecting channels. There is an external antenna, so that is a nice feature. It's built in, and that doesn't involve too many wires. The side features the aforementioned micro USB port for charging. It takes roughly 3 hours to completely charge. It does come fully charged when you get it out of the box. Afterwards, you can play back audio for about 6 hours before you need to recharge it again, which is a nice benchmark. The top here features a power on-off switch, and the back just features that speaker. The grill here is made out of metal. The back features 4 rubber feet, which prevents the speaker from sliding around on a surface or a desk, and also features the LED light, which for some reason is covered underneath this information guide, which looks like it's just stuck onto the surface, but actually it's completely flush. The plastic here has a groove, and then the paper here is stuck on the inside, so it's more like a permanent kind of instruction guide, so that kind of blocks the light a little bit. It's not too crippling, but the light could be brighter, and I kind of wish that they designed this so that the plastic plating was onto the side as opposed to covering up the light. Nonetheless, it's pretty nice in terms of the design since it is so compact, and they managed to fit quite a few features on here. So turning things on for the first time, you'll see that the light turns on automatically. There isn't an option for you to change the light effect, so you can't go through separate colors. You also can't change it so it doesn't have a strobing light or a certain color or a certain animation. There's just this one animation. You can turn the light on or off, but that's the extent of what you can customize. So setting this off to a desk, you can kind of see this is what it looks like when it's on. Again, it's a fairly interesting look. It does work well if you have music playing in the background, but again, it doesn't synchronize to the beat of the music. So the front of the unit houses a display which is also backlit, and it shows off the time in a 24-hour format, fairly easy to read, and shows off the battery indicator on the very top as well. Changing the time and date is also quite simple, so you just tap on the play pause key for a few seconds. Allows you to use the volume controls to change that, and then you can tap on it again to confirm it. And next it goes through and asks you to change and add an alarm. So you can turn the alarm function on or off. It uses a simple beep to wake you up. It does get quite loud, so it does an effective job as an alarm, I would say, but it doesn't have a dedicated snooze key right on the very top, so it's not as easy to press on that and then sleep for a few more minutes. You then have to kind of fiddle around the controls to turn the unit off, but it does work fairly well, and then you can set the alarm on. Right now we again have the lights turned off. It works fairly well. Tapping on the mode key also turns on the last use function. It's going to be the FM radio in this case, and you can kind of hear the static. It's trying to find a channel, but once the channel is fully complete, you can also save presets if you want. It actually does a pretty decent job, and channel reception is fairly strong, especially for the size of the unit. It does a decent job of listening to news channels as well as a bit of music here and there. So next we're going to do a quick audio test by plugging this into a phone and giving you guys a sample of what the quality of the music is like. So line in, and then attached onto the volume jack of your device. There's going to be a little bit of static, but overall it's not too bad. It still is somewhat stronger in terms of audio performance than using a Bluetooth speaker because you don't get too much distortion. But again, this is a very small mono speaker, so it's not the best in the world. Okay, so we're going to play back the music now. So as you can hear, there is actually a pretty nice sounding speaker on here. It's quite clear sounding, it gets very loud, and it doesn't have as much of a punch in terms of a bass, but it's not too bad either. We've seen and heard far worse from mono speakers in the past. This one actually does a decent job. If you're listening just to casual pop music or electronic music, I think it'll be more than pleased. A pretty good option for sticking on a car, maybe near a kitchen, if you just bring it around the house. It fits those situations quite nicely, and I think as far as mini speakers go, this one, again, surprised us with its overall quality. Overall, there are a few improvements to be made. Definitely not an audiophile grade speaker by any means, but does a decent job nonetheless. So yeah, hopefully that gave you guys a quick idea of what the sound quality is like. Again, it lacks a bit more of that bass or that punch in the lower frequencies, but that's to be expected from such a small speaker, I suppose. Doesn't have a passive radiator or added bass for that, or subwoofer for that, so that is one of the limitations. So you can tap on the mode key for a few seconds longer to again turn on that light functionality, so you can kind of have the light on when you're listening to music. It adds a bit more of a mood lighting effect, but it's not bright enough for using as a night light or anything like that. So at the end of the day, I have to say that I am a fan of the NiZHi TT-032 multimedia speaker because it surprised me, but having a lot of functions stacked into this tiny design, and most of those functions work quite well. There are a few improvements to be made, but all in all, for a sub $15 mini speaker that also works well as an alarm, also as a light, I think this is one of the more clever design products that I've seen for this price point. You can check out more details about this in our official written review, but this has been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews.